make the tree good is one of those things that Jesus said that reaches way beyond the immediate context in which it was spoken. And therefore it becomes wisdom, or it's easy for us to see that it's intended to be wisdom that is to be applied all over the place for a whole host of reasons. It's applied here in the reading that Will read for us in Matthew 12. Jesus talks about it in the context of distinguishing or even defending his own righteousness. Luke uses the verse in the middle of discussing human behavior. Matthew, earlier in his gospel, uses similar language when Jesus is trying to help us to distinguish wolves in sheep's clothing. But it is a text that is biblical wisdom that, when applied elsewhere, make the tree good. I think I did a lesson on this a couple of months ago, jumping off what my dad used to say: look after the pennies and the pounds will take care of themselves. Make the tree good. Get it right at the source, and you won't have to worry about the things down the road. In its fuller context, and in Matthew 12, it says, make a tree good, and its fruit will be good. Or make a tree bad, and its fruit will be bad. For a tree is recognized by its fruit. You brood of vipers, how can you who are evil say anything good? For out of the overflow of the heart the mouth speaks. The good man brings good things out of the good stored up in him, and the evil man brings evil things out of the evil stored up in him. But I tell you that men will have to give an account on the day of judgment for every careless word they have spoken. For by your words you will be acquitted, and by your words you will be condemned. That's a bit severe. Not what we do, what we say. Why is Scripture so big on words? Things that we use without even thinking. Because words create the world that everyone else has to live in. Rhetoric is important. You'll have realized this. People have fits when the president says something wrong. People have fits when the Queen says something wrong. If their leader, their president, their prime minister goes to a different country and says something, he hasn't done anything, he's only spoke, and yet the whole country is up in turmoil. Words mean things. And make the tree good becomes applicable in so many different situations. Get it right at the source, and don't worry about the fruit. Don't start looking at the tree, and if the fruit is bad, thinking that it's the fruit that's the problem. It's the tree that's the problem. And we can spend forever and a day fussing over the fruit and never get a good apple ever again, because we never address the actual problem. So that's why words are important to God. And we can't, I know we're a little bit behind the 8 ball, and we can't help it, of course, because language is, by its very nature, limiting. If I tell you something is funny, or I heard something funny, or I read a book that was funny, or I read a book that was boring, or I read a book or I saw a movie that was exciting, I'm assuming that you already know what those words mean. And I'm assuming that they mean the same thing in your head as they mean in my head. But what What if I find a movie that's hilarious and I tell you, you need to see this movie, it's hilarious, but you think hilarious just means mildly amusing? There's the breakdown. There's the problem. And what happens, and this is more in line with the angle I'm striving for here this morning, what happens whenever I find a movie that's more funny than hilarious? When the biggest word we have for it doesn't do it. Well, Billy, then you say really hilarious. Okay, what happens when I find a movie that's funnier than really hilarious? Well, really, well, there's only so many reallys we can use. And that's the problem. When hilarious is the biggest word we have, and it's funnier than that, we're stuck. Our language is limiting us. So even without meaning to, and certainly without wanting to, we make God less than He actually is every time we speak about Him. Every time. We don't want to. We certainly don't mean to. Our intention is the exact opposite of that. But the truth of the matter is that His glory exceeds our imagination. He exceeds all that we can ask or imagine. We don't have the words. He's more glorious than glory. He's holier than holy. He's stronger than might and strength and power. He's kinder than kindness. He's more compassionate than compassion and more loving than love. And sometimes the only reason we do speak about Him is because not to speak about Him is to say even less than less. Which means, though we don't like to admit it, which means even the Bible, as great as it describes God to be, doesn't adequately describe how great and glorious He is. It can't. It's also limited by words, and the words and the understanding of the people who are reading it. So as great as even the Bible describes God to be, we must remember that when we read something and we find Him loving and caring and compassionate, or it's speaking about the next world and it's exciting and it's thrilling, we got to remember it's way beyond that. It's bigger, it's better, it's deeper, it's broader, it's wider than all of the words that's being used. Look, in telling people about the coming Messiah, and in effort to get the people excited about the coming Messiah, they used the biggest words, the greatest illustrations they could find. The prophets, the psalmists, they told the people that Elijah was coming to prepare his way, and that David would sit back upon the throne. Now, obviously Elijah didn't come back, and David didn't take his throne. If we're taking the Bible literally, those prophecies failed. They didn't get what was promised to them. They didn't get Elijah, and David never retook his throne. Well, what did they get? Well, they got John the Baptist instead of Elijah, who, according to Jesus, among women, has not risen anyone greater. They got an upgrade from Elijah. And I think we'd all be in agreement here when we talk, if it's kings and messiahs we're talking about, that Christ himself was an upgrade from David. At least as far as kings and messiahs go, Jesus was a major upgrade, as good as David was. But David and Elijah were the greatest things that they could say. Why did they tell them Elijah and David would be back? Because they're using the best things the people knew, the loftiest ideas, the greatest examples, the most powerful imagery that the people understood to try and excite them and tell them that what was on the horizon. In the late 1800s, I think I've used this illustration before. I don't know. I use them all the time. I never stop talking. I never remember what I said and where I said it, so some of them bear repeating. If I tell one twice, I don't know. Live with me, forgive me, overlook it. I don't know, check your mail or something in the process. In the late 1800s, fathers would have been telling their sons, as they see their sons eyeing up the neighbor's horse and buggy, the latest horse and buggy. And fathers would have told their sons things like, don't you worry, son. When you grow up, when you turn 18, I'm going to buy you the best horse and buggy money can buy. But in the interim of that period, the automobile was invented. Which means if the father kept his promise, the greatest horse and buggy, the son would have been disappointed. If they had actually fulfilled the promise of a horse and buggy, and they couldn't promise an automobile because it had never been invented. And that wasn't the spirit behind the promise anyway. The spirit of the promise is, I'm going to buy you the best there is. But by the time the son grew up, the automobile blew the horse and buggy out of the water. And so in keeping his promise of the best horse and buggy money could buy, he buys his son an automobile. So the prophecies, prophetic language, doesn't aim for literal accuracy. And this is something we seem to have forgotten. We haven't learned it. We're doubling down on it, especially as it relates to the Messiah and his coming again. We know they didn't speak literally the first time, but suddenly everybody's speaking literally about it. Apocalyptic language, prophetic language, isn't striving to be literal. It strives to go beyond the words, beyond the imagination. And the problem is that it's limited by the understanding of those who hear it. So equally so, and where all this is leading to this morning, it isn't entirely helpful for us. Even although Scripture itself uses language like this, it isn't always helpful for us to talk about God as though He is some being out there on some other plane, in some other existence, and if we could just see far enough beyond the clouds, or if we could just see with a special type of vision, we might catch sight of Him. God isn't a being. It's more biblically accurate to say that God is being. He is existence itself. It's why nothing is beyond Him, for it is all within Him. It's why He never breaks sweat, why Jesus never broke sweat. Let me very crudely try to illustrate this for you. The worlds that you created for your little ones, as you tucked them in at night, in a land far away, there was such a beautiful young princess who lived among, or there was a courageous little lion and he could run like the wind and he defeated the enemies. The worlds that you created, in those worlds that you were making, you were God. And whatever you wanted to happen in that world happened. simply by your thinking it and speaking it into the story. If you wanted to be the young princess, the most fairest in the land, then she was. If you wanted the little princess to be able to fly, she could. If you wanted the young lion to be able to jump over mountains in a single bound, he could. Simply by you willing it, without any effort at all, right into the story. If you wanted to create earthquakes or shake mountains, or even if you wanted to open an entire sea where millions of people could walk through on dry ground, it would be as easy for you as saying it into the story, into the little world that you were making for the imagination of your children. In the beginning was the Word. The Word. And the Word was with God. And the Word was God. He was with God in the beginning. All things were made through Him and by Him. And without Him was not anything made that has been made. In Him was life. And this life was the light of man. The Word became flesh and lived among us. Our Bible opens. Our Bible opens with this very notion. It's right there. And God said, "Let there be light," and there was light. Why? It's His world. And He'll speak anything He wants into it. And it's as easy for Him to speak into this world as it is. It's why nothing is beyond Him. It's why we're encouraged to understand that He is greater than all we can ask or imagine. It's right there in the opening verses. In fact, one of the most profound verses in Scripture was spoken in Greece at the Areopagus beside the Acropolis. I've been there. I've stood on the very spot where Paul said what I'm about to read to you, as he proved, among other things, that inspiration was not limited to the biblical text, as he quotes the Greek poets to make a point. And the point he was making was something that the Greek poets had already stumbled across and already had a kind of sense of. And Paul pulls that into what he has to say. Here's what he says. Men of Athens, I see that in every way you are very religious. For as I walked around and looked carefully at the objects of your worship, I even found an altar with this inscription: to an unknown God. So what you worship as unknown is what I am about to proclaim to you. That was genius. Brilliant preaching. And then Paul says this: the God who made the world and everything in it. Of course, we already know, we've read Genesis, how made was, spoke. That's how He made it. The God who made the world and everything in it is the Lord of heaven and earth, and does not live in temples built by hands, and He is not served by human hands as though He needs something, because He Himself gives all men life and breath and everything else. From one man He made every nation of men, that they should inhabit the whole earth, and He determined the times set for them and the exact boundaries where they should live. God did this so that men would seek Him and perhaps reach out for Him and find Him, though He is not far from each one of us. Here it is. You ready? You ready? For in Him we live. We, he's talking to Greeks, so everybody. In Him, not beside Him, not away from Him. In Him we live and we move and we have our being, as some of your own prophets have said, or poets have said, we are His offspring. He is being. He is existence itself. It's within Him we live and move and have our being. We belong to the story that is being narrated, not beyond Himself, within Himself, in keeping with Himself. God opening the Red Sea, therefore, in this world, our world, in this story that He is telling, is as easy for Him to open as a story, as opening a sea in a story that you're telling your little ones. Simply by speaking it, simply by thinking it, it becomes so. But this is not your world, and this is not your story. This is my Father's world, and this is my Father's story. This is why every ounce of our teaching and our preaching, slight exaggeration, but only slight, why every ounce of our preacher's words must be aiming to get us closer to Him, to reveal Him, to catch a sight of Him, to make Him bigger, broader, deeper, wider. He's the unknown, and that we belong to a generation, perhaps the first in 2,000 years, who even in churches hear so little about Him and hear so much about us, because we are the morons who traded preachers for pseudo-psychoanalysts and counselors. And now all we ever hear about is the gospel of how to sin less, or the gospel of how to behave better. And I don't know if you've noticed, or any student of history can look over the past 2,000 years and compare what went before us and what's happening now. This obsession over ourselves, over our fruit, isn't boding well for us. And what are we doing? We do what we always do. When we punch a hole in the boat to get rid of the water and more water comes in, well, we can't be wrong, so we punch another hole. Well, the problem is we're not obsessing about the fruit enough. Obviously, there's more water coming in. Dear me, the job of the man, and I want you to keep this in mind when I leave, the job of the man who stands in the pulpit, surely, is to ascend the mountain in the hopes of catching a glimpse of Him, that He might come down with His face radiant, excited, arms busting with what He has to share with you, or at least to die trying. We're not all great at it, evidently, and we fail more often than we attempt it. But dear God, I'd rather arrive on a Sunday morning and hear someone fail trying to get me closer to Him than yet another brilliant rehearsal of why sin is wrong. There must be people all over the nation every week going, what? Wait, sin's wrong? Who knew? Who knew? I don't know why it took me 24,980 times hearing it to get it. What a revelation. Thank you, preacher. Thank you for spending your entire week on that. What a revelation. Who knew? Did you know? Heavens to Betsy. Look, I know some of it's necessary. But even that, even when it comes to having to talk about us and our behavior, even those things are written to reveal Him and His holiness and His standards. We're not even told typically, if these sermons that I've heard are typical, we're never even told why sinning is wrong. We're never even told why goodness is good. Well, it's bad for you. All right. Well, it isn't helpful. Okay, that's true. It contributes toward pain and suffering. Again, true. It hinders blessing. Yes, it's evil. It's detrimental. It ruins your spiritual walk. It interferes with your prayer life. True. Sin is wrong. Because in Him we live and move and have our being. And it's wrong to bring the unholy into the temple of the living God. And if we understood ancient literature better, when we read Genesis, what we'd soon discover we are reading is temple language of a God who builds a temple and then dwells in the temple. The only difference with our God is He's above it and beyond it and below it. He lives within the temple that exists even within Him, unlike all the other gods. And any chance we have, any real help that can come our way with the things that we struggle with, I'm telling you now, will never come by examining and obsessing over the problems. Especially when we're ignoring the cure, the tree. When we're ignoring the cure for it. When I am lifted up, said Jesus, when I am lifted up, not you, not your problems, not your ailments, when I am lifted up, I will draw all men to myself. He is the healer. When He is lifted up, healing begins. Not the obsession over what ails us. Make the tree good, Jesus says, and the fruit naturally follows. This constant obsessing over the fruit that we hear, when it's the neglect of the tree that's the issue. Seek first His kingdom and His righteousness. And then what did He say would happen? And then all these things will be yours to you. Make the tree good. Get God in His place. Get the first things first. Major in the majors. Love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, strength, and mind. This is the first and the greatest commandment. Jesus said, make the tree good. Get Him where He needs to be. Some of us are wondering why our pyramids all fall down, and we're building them upside down. Make the tree good. Look, sometimes I'll talk to Will about ball control, how to trap a ball, how to hit a ball, if you want it to bend right, if you want it to curve left, if you're going for pure power. We'll talk about these things. It's unavoidable. It's part of the game. It's not the game, but it's part of the game, so it becomes unavoidable. I'll talk to him about team formation and what he's meant to do when he doesn't have the ball, when the spotlight's on someone else. I'll try and explain to him how good a team can perform if everybody's moving at the same time in the same place. Sometimes I'll even analyze what it is he's doing wrong on the pitch. I can't avoid it. But none of it, you think this would have dawned on our preachers. Not a single ounce of that inspires him to pick up a ball. None of it. You think my critique makes him want to pick up a ball? His daddy's critique? No. If I want him to pick up a ball, I take him into his room, I open up YouTube, and I play a video of Lionel Messi, the God of soccer. And it's in watching him. Whoa! That's how to do it. That's what makes him want to, seeing him do it perfectly. And you know what the great thing is? In watching Messi, he highlights everything that he does wrong without even mentioning it. It's automatically clear what he's doing wrong when he sees what is being done right. When I am lifted up, said Jesus, all men will find their way to me. Make the tree good. So for all our talk, and we're great about it, we're experts on it and how we should live and how everybody else should live, for all our talk and what we shouldn't be doing, for all our talk and what we should be doing, whatever spiritual discipline it is we have in our mind, if the kingdom isn't first, if the command isn't first and greatest, if the tree isn't good, it's all for naught, for nothing. And it's no wonder why we feel sometimes like our wheels are spinning. I don't love you because we attend the same church. I don't love you because we share the same doctrine or share similar theological persuasions. I love you because we share the same Father. And I really love you. I really love you whenever I see Him in you. Makes me jealous, but I like that kind of jealousy. Some of you in here are extraordinarily generous. Compared to me, divinely generous. I know, I've seen it. I've received it. And every time I see it, my reaction is always the same. Oh, there He is. There He is, right there. He promised He'd be among us. And there He is right there. Some of you welcome each other every Sunday as though you haven't seen each other in decades. Oh, there He is. There He is. Some of you recently walked through the valley of the shadow of death. I watched you. What, do you think I saw you and not the shepherd who was leading you? You think I didn't see the rod and the staff that was comforting you? Some of you in here are shaped so beautifully. Some of you listen extraordinarily well. Your compliments, your encouragement. And I'm so envious of it when I see you who do it so well. So envious of it. Because I know I'm only seeing it because you got it from Him. From seeing Him. That because of something you saw in Him, it's now part of you, and I'm so envious sometimes. And sometimes I'll say to God, why didn't you give me that? Why am I not like that? And of course I'll hear God whispering back, I don't know, why are you not like that? But you do it so well, so naturally, so wonderfully. And there isn't an ounce of me, there's no part of me believes that exists within you because someone told you sin was wrong some point in your life. Sin wasn't lifted up. Sin being lifted up doesn't produce that. Him being lifted up produces that in our lives. It's Him that's in you. It's undeniable. I've read the book. I know what He looks like. And so when you do it, I'm thinking, oh look, doesn't she look just like Daddy when he does that? Isn't that great? So much in this life, so much of it depends on not just the right things. It's getting the right things in the right place. And if you've ever tried to build a pyramid, you'll know this. So, if your wheels are spinning, if you're constantly frustrated, if you genuinely believe you're trying and getting nowhere, make the tree good. Make the tree good. Get God where He needs to be. And maybe you'll say to me, I am. I do seek first his kingdom and his righteousness. I do love the Lord with all my heart. Well, then we'll talk about it. And we'll talk about other things that might be the problem. But until that's in place, until the tree is good, it's all for nothing. And our wheels will spin. In him you live and move and have your being. If I stop obsessing about him, if I ever start obsessing about anything else but him, you'll tell me, won't you? Because I will have erred fantastically. Because it's all him. It's always all him. Because in him we live. In him we live and move and have our being. Make the tree good. If you are finding these videos helpful, would you please consider liking, perhaps even commenting, and greatest of all, if you could at least share it with one person, and hopefully together we can help them the way that you've been helped. It helps the channel, it helps the distribution far more than you know. At the very least, thank you for watching them. God richly bless you in your dogged pursuit of him.